Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's John, and if you've been around for a while, you know that I participate in an event called Historathon. I'll leave all the information below if you're curious about what that's all about. I talk about it on a somewhat frequent basis. Our first year was in 2023, and ever since the first year, Princeton University Press and the kind people over in their publicity and marketing departments have been generous enough to send my way 4 different books every single year to sort of promote on my channel, talk about, and hopefully I'll get to them sometime in the year. I've read several of them already, just to get people interested in the reading of history. 4, because we break the year up into 4 quarters, and I pick from their back catalog 1 book from each quarter and talk about it. And actually I have 5 books this time because I have another book from Princeton University Press that I just forgot to show in another video, or I didn't have it on me to show. It hadn't been mailed to me yet. So I'm going to show you the 4 books for Historathon2025, and then an extra, okay? So in chronological order, starting with quarter 1, I got some late classical / early antiquity, early Middle Ages political history, or political thought. And this is from someone I've been reading some more of this month and last month, and it is St. Augustine. This is Michael Lamb's A Commonwealth of Hope, Augustine's political thought. When it comes to politics, Augustine of Hippo is renowned as one of history's great pessimists, with his sights set firmly on the heavenly rather than the public sphere. Many have enlisted him to chasten political hopes, highlighting the realities of evil and encouraging citizens instead to cast their hopes on heaven, not on earth. A Commonwealth of Hope challenges prevailing interpretations of Augustinian pessimism, offering a new vision of his political thought that can also help today's citizens sustain hope in the face of despair. Amid rising inequality, injustice, and political division, many citizens wonder what to hope for in politics and whether it's possible to forge common hopes in a deeply polarized society. Michael Lamb takes up this challenge, offering the first in-depth analysis of Augustine's virtue of hope and its profound implications for political life. He draws on a wide range of Augustine's writings, including neglected sermons, letters, and treatises, and integrates insights from political theory, religious studies, theology, and philosophy. And in doing so, he shows how diverse citizens, both religious and secular, can unite around common hopes for the Commonwealth. So, I don't think I've read too much specifically on Augustine's political thought. I mean, outside of De Civitate Dei, but his gigantic book that everyone reads when they want to know about Augustine's political thought. I haven't read any secondary material on his political thought. A Commonwealth of Hope, Augustine's political thought, by Michael Lamb from Princeton University Press. Up next is quarter 2, and for quarter 2 we have most of the Renaissance. So I thought, well, something about the Renaissance, and they had a book that I don't have by, well, 2 authors, one of whom is Anthony Grafton, the great scholar of Renaissance studies and early modern European history. This is by Marin Elizabeth Schwab and Anthony Grafton. This is called The Art of Discovery, Digging into the Past in Renaissance Europe. Sorry, I can't quite see the subtitle there. In the early 15th century, a casket containing the remains of Roman historian Livy was unearthed in a Benedictine monastery in Padua. The find was greeted with the same enthusiasm as the bones of a Christian saint and established a pattern that antiquarians would follow for centuries to come. The Art of Discovery tells the stories of Renaissance antiquarians who turned material remains of the ancient world into sources for scholars and artists, inspirations for palaces and churches, and objects of pilgrimage and devotion. Maren Elizabeth Schwab and Anthony Grafton bring to life some of the most spectacular finds of the age, such as Nero's Golden House and the wooden placard that was supposedly nailed to the True Cross. They take readers into basements, caves, and cisterns, explaining how digs were undertaken and shedding light on the methods antiquarians and the alchemists and craftspeople they consulted used to interpret them. What emerges is not an origin story for modern archaeology or art history, but rather an account of how early modern artisanal skills and technical expertise were used to create new knowledge about the past and inspire new forms of art, scholarship, and devotion in the present. So, using archaeology to learn about the past and how that played out during the Renaissance, really much before the birth of what we know as modern archaeology. The Art of Discovery, digging into the past in Renaissance Europe. I wanted to go get my copy of this to show you, but I was interested in this book because I've been meaning to read the original book for a while. Liberty Fund has reprinted the original, and this is sort of a biography of the book and also a sort of a history of ideas of the man as well, the author of the book. And this is Mandeville, The Mind and Times of Bernard Mandeville, the Wickedest Man in Europe, by John Callanan. In 1714, doctor, philosopher, and writer Bernard Mandeville published The Fable of the Bees, a humorous tale in which a prosperous hive full of greedy and licentious bees trade their vices for virtues and immediately fall into economic and societal collapse. Outrage among the reading public followed. Philosophers took up their pens to refute what they saw is the fable's central assertion. How could it be that an immoral community thrived, but the introduction of morality caused it to crash and burn? In Mandeville, and it took me about 3 times, I'm really slow on the uptake, apparently, it's a pun on his name, Mandeville, get it? In Mandeville, John Callanan examines Mandeville and the famous fable, showing how its contentious claim that vice was essential to the economic flourishing of any society formed part of Mandeville's overall theory of human nature. Mandeville, Callanan argues, was perfectly suited to analyze and satirize the emerging phenomenon of modern society and reveal the gap between its self-image and its reality. Callanan shows that Mandeville's thinking was informed by his medical training and his innovative approach to the treatment of illness with both physiological and psychological components. Through incisive and controversial analyses of sexual mores, gender inequality, economic structures, and political ideology, Mandeville sought to provide a naturalistic account of human behavior, one that put humans in close continuity with animals. Aware that his fellow humans might find this offensive, he cloaked his theories in fables, poems, anecdotes, and humorous stories. Mandeville mastered irony precisely for the purpose of making us aware of uncomfortable aspects of our deepest natures, aspects that we still struggle to acknowledge today. Sort of an intellectual biography of Bernard de Mandeville and his most famous piece of work, The Fable of the Bees, Mandeville, The Mind and Times of Bernard Mandeville, the Wickedest Man in Europe, by John Callanan. Okay. This is nerdy even for me, and that's really saying something. That's probably going to push my limits of, excuse me, what I know about sociology, but I'm ready to dig in because it sounds really interesting. I wonder what I'll take away when I read it, because it looks like a challenge, but I'm here for it, so I'll try it. This is The Colonial Origins of Modern Social Thought, French Sociology and the Overseas Empire by George Steinmetz. In this provocative and original retelling of the history of French social thought, George Steinmetz places the history and development of modern French sociology in the context of the French Empire after World War II, connecting the rise of all the social sciences with efforts by France and other imperial powers to consolidate control over their crisis-ridden colonies. Steinmetz argues that colonial research represented a crucial core of the Renaissance academic discipline of sociology, especially between the late 1930s and the 1960s. Sociologists, who became favored partners of colonial governments, were asked to apply their expertise to such social problems as detribalization, urbanization, poverty, and labor migration. This colonial orientation permeated all the major subfields of sociological research, Steinmetz contends, and is at the center of the work of four influential scholars. Raymond Aron, who you might know through a book called The Opium of the Intellectuals, Jacques Burke, Georges Ballandier, and Pierre Bourdieu. In retelling this history, Steinmetz develops and deploys a new methodological approach that combines attention to broadly contextual factors, dynamics within the intellectual development of the social sciences and sociology in particular, and close readings of sociological texts. He moves gradually toward the post-war sociologists of colonialism and their writings, beginning with the most macroscopic contexts, which include the post-war reoccupation of the French Empire and the turn of developmentalist policies and the resulting demand for new forms of social scientific expertise. After exploring the colonial engagement of researchers in sociology and neighboring fields before and after 1945, he turns to detailed examinations of the work of Aron, who created a sociology of empires, Burke, the leading historical sociologist of North Africa, Ballandier, the founder of French Africanist sociology, and Bourdieu, whose renowned theoretical concepts were forged in war-torn late colonial Algeria. Now, I only know of Raymond Aron and Pierre Bourdieu. So Burke and Ballandier are completely new names to me. So this should be interesting. We'll probably be doing a lot of Googling while I read this. Excuse me. Okay, so that's quarter 4. Obviously, 19th century. So this is the one extra book. This is a little bit different than I thought it would be. I just thought this would be a history of the Celts, because the title and the subtitle sort of make you think that's what it is. This is Ian Stewart's The Celts, A Modern History. So it's about Celtic history, right? Well, it's actually a slightly different take on that. Before the Greeks and Romans, the Celts ruled the ancient world. They sacked Rome, invaded Greece, and conquered much of Europe, from Ireland to Turkey. Celts registered deeply on the classical imagination for 1,000 years, and were variously described by writers like Caesar and Livy as unruly barbarians, fearless warriors, and gracious hosts. But then, in the early Middle Ages, they vanished. In The Celts, Ian Stewart tells the story of their rediscovery during the Renaissance and their transformation over the next few centuries into one of the most popular European ancestral peoples. The Celts shows how the idea of this ancient people was rediscovered by scholars, honed by intellectuals, politicians, and other thinkers of various stripes, and adopted by cultural revivalists and activists as they tried to build European nations and nationalisms through the 18th and 19th centuries. Long forgotten, the Celts probably came to be seen as the ancestors, improbably came to be seen as the ancestors of most Western Europeans, and as a pillar of modern national identity in Britain, Ireland, and France. So this is not a history of what happened to the Celtic people so much as it's a sort of a history of cultural remembrance. How starting in the Renaissance, when the Celts were rediscovered, coming up through the modern day, how they have been remembered, interpreted, thought of, etc. So, like I said, different from what I thought, still very interesting, still invested in what it has to say. I showed a book on the Pile of Possibilities video for quarter 1 that is by Ronald Hutton that appears to be more of a sort of traditional book about the Druids. So that might be a good book to look into at the same time. But that rounds up the extra book. And let me know if any of these sound interesting. I will try to read these as the year goes along. And I will talk to you later. Bye.